It was really loud. So glad to have you all here. Welcome to tonight. So got a few things we're planning to do. We're going to talk about logic models tonight. Let's look at assignments to see kind of what's due. As of right now, November 6th, we should have the article write-up in there. And then beyond that, where's our next one? The next one down, other than discussions, is so program identification. I've given you feedback on that. The assessment and instrument evaluation, we did that October 23rd. And then the article review write-up is done. So our next one after that is going to be the assessment creation assignment that's to do on the 20th. So you got a couple weeks to get that going on. And then we have our final projects. So we're getting close, getting close. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer any of those that you might have about assignments or what we have going on. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. Go
I have a
ahead.
question.
Yeah.
Can I turn in the assignment late? The one that's due today?
Yeah, that's
Or no?
fine.
Yeah, okay.
Turn it in tomorrow. That's fine, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Bianca, go for it.
I'm having a bit of trouble finding an article. I'm wondering if there's like something specific that I need to search just because I I'm I don't know what to search
It,
for.
it can be anything you want the article to be on. I don't give you direction on what you're going to do. It can be any article. It should be something related to your evaluation. So if your evaluation write-up is going to be something about, I don't know, teaching, and there's a whole bunch of different things that you guys were doing. Whatever you did, I would go in and actually just go in and look for an article related to that, something that's fairly current, that's not too long and too complex to understand. So any art, I don't really care what one you guys use. It's probably going to be easier for you if it's associated with your actual write-up, because that'll help you in that process. But so beyond that, it's kind of up to you. So just pick an article that you want to find, and if you get stuck, just let me know.
How far back can we go with the article? Like how many years do you want it
I'm not
back?
going to fuss about that.
No, okay.
If I was in research methods, I would say you need to go within the last 10 years, but we're not in research methods tonight, so I'm not too fussed about it. I'm not going to be looking at dates saying, oh, too far. What other questions do you have?
Do you want a link to the article included?
No,
Okay.
I don't need it. I'm not going to look at it. Just put the bibliography in there and do the write-up. This is simply there is not a class I teach that you don't do some type of going in and looking at articles, because it's basic practice in education. You should be doing this. This is what we do. So you do one, it's an opportunity to forces you to go into the literature to look at some of the research around what your topic is, and that's the reason I do it. It's very intentional. It's not just like a activity to, oh, I need to have something else on the syllabus. Trust me, I can add lots on the syllabus. That's not why I do it. I do it because I want you to go into the research about what your topic is. It doesn't matter what the article is. It could be a bad one. That's your choice. I mean, in the end, you could look at it and say, this is a terrible article. That's why I wrote about, I found it, whatever. I just want you to get into the habit of going in to look at the articles. We as a professor, as in university, you should have an experience and really get used to doing that with every class you're in. As we say, your opinion, while it's important to you, is not important to anybody else in your paper, because you don't have the expertise to have an opinion about it yet. If you understand what I'm saying. I know that sounds mean, but that's not what it is. It's what it is that when you write it and say, this is my opinion about something, you're not an expert. Go find the research that's the expert that has the opinion about what you're talking about. That's what we want you to do. The researchers can have that opinion because it's based in what they understand about the research, what they've done, and the rest. At some point, I hope all of you become an expert in something that you're doing, and then you'll be publishing papers, and then you will be that expert. But until you get to that point, we need to find those who are the experts, and they're the ones who can have the opinions and thoughts and the rest of that. And that's really kind of what we're doing. So we want you to get into the habit of doing this. I mean, we live in a social media culture that our opinion means everything, and so you can just write whatever you want, whether it's true or not. But that's not the reality. That's in reality. So with the educated approach, you need to be able to back that up with evidence and research is the place that you go for that. So we encourage you to expose yourself to that, spend some time finding some articles, and then justify some of what you're thinking. But I'm not going to tell you do the article on this one or that one, or it's not what I want to do. I want you to spend a little time looking. So there should be some of that work in there.
Is there a specific page range it should
Nope.
be?
Nope. Mm-mm. Neither the length of the article nor the length of the write-up. You should just, it's just something that you're summarizing and look at. Just answer the questions, put what's in there, and you're going to be fine. Yeah.
I have a question that's a little off topic.
Sure.
Once I graduate from my master's program, I will be losing access to the databases for doing more research, and I do want to continue my practice. What are some resources you use without having to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars to like JSTOR or EBSCO?
So you're not going to get everything. It's just a fact. Just kind of the way that it works. But what you can do, and I know that it's funny because I'm sure you've been told your whole life that don't use this because of whatever. But Google Scholar is not bad. And so if you get into Google Scholar and you dig around a little bit, you'll find that it actually has some pretty good stuff. So if I were to look, let's say that I wanted to look at professional it's professional learning, communities, education. I don't even know if that's what that is, but whatever. Okay, so urban PLCs, whatever. So here's an article. So the cool thing is this is a lot of times you'll find articles like that and you just go to the PDF and you'll be able to pull it down. So some of them will have some of those articles that you'll be able to find something in. So this is Delta Kappa Gamma Bulletin. It has some information in it that you can read from there. You'll be able to get some of these. Sometimes you won't, like here you won't. This is a book. But there's a lot of the stuff nowadays will be in PDF that you can be able to find. Here's the other thing that's kind of cool about it. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at this one here. So I just limited it to just the last since 2021. And so some of the newer stuff you may not have, but let's say, you know, this is one that you look at and you go, this is perfect. This is a perfect article. I love this article. I downloaded it. It's really great. So there's two things that you can do. So you can go in and you can find, as most of us know, let's say that this was one of the ones you want and you were interested in this article here, you can find the citations that they used in their actual write-up. So you can go backwards in time and find some of the citations. Okay, so here's the references. So everyone's been told that. Yes, we can do that. You can take a look. Here's some articles that you can do those. So this Gusky, professional development's a classic thing that Gusky's one that does professional development research. Linda Darling Hammond, who I sat and listened to all day yesterday, was our state board chair. But nonetheless, you can find those. That's great. But I don't want to go too far back. I mean, this one here, 1991, that doesn't help me. What about some more current stuff? Well, what if this is the one that you're really interested in looking at? If you take a look at the bottom of this, see where it says cited by 591? That means that 591 people who have done research have cited this article in their article. So you're now going forwards in time. Since 2021, 500. If I click on this, now these are all the articles that have cited that article. And it's probably something to do with what you're doing. And so you can take a look to see who actually has it, and then you can keep going back and forth. And so there's different ways to be able to reach around. Google Scholar's pretty good. It's a pretty good database of stuff. It's not as easy to search as EBSCO and some of the other ones, but this is something that actually works pretty well. I mean, you can put some filters in there where you're going to limit it to English only. You can have some dates and things along those lines, and it's actually pretty good. So I'd start there. But yeah, my encouragement is to go on and get a doctorate, so that way you'll have access to your doctoral program. Just saying. I have an opinion on that, but other questions? Have you guys learned that to use the cited by? You guys done that before? Anybody done that before? I don't know if you've seen that, to be able to cite it, because yeah, that actually works really well. I love going back. That's super useful to be able to see that. And some of it used to have that it had all the references too, This related articles is one that's pretty good too, but it's not a cited one. It's just kind of things that are associated with it. It's using AI to be able to pull some of those things in anyway. Okay. All right. What other questions do you have about assignments and the rest?
I think I'm gonna have to resubmit the one that you're giving some clarity on because I know you're saying the link didn't matter or anything, but I did find one and it does seem like I aligned, but then I just started looking for references to add that on and I saw I found an article that's the same one but like with much more specificity. So I
Don't
guess
don't don't redo it. Don't
okay.
redo it. Don't redo it. Use that article for what you're looking at for your final thing. You're done. You're done. Move on.
Okay.
It's not worth your time to go through and redo it again. The reason I'm doing it, I try always to tell students the reason I assign things. I don't just like to give you assignments for an assignment's sake. I give it to you for a reason. I just want to push you into the literature. And you did it. You went into literature and now you found that and you found one more. Good. Mission accomplished. And for you to get a little practice writing and reading some of the research and getting used to doing that, it's great. It is the language of your profession. So you need to be able to have that. If you can't speak the language of your profession and justify it based upon what you understand, then you get suckered into things. And so we want you to be able to read the research. And that's why I push you in. That's what you're doing it for. So if you've done that with one, you're done. Good job. Other questions? Okay. Oakley Dokley, let's talk a little bit about where we're headed. So if you think about it, we've done quite a few different things. This identification, you got some feedback on that. We've done some about the assessment and the rest. Now we're getting into the assessment creation, which is a little more from the previous units, but we're leaning in again towards these final projects. And the final project really is going to be something about the topic that you chose. And as we look at it, the final project, when you look at the actual assignment, you can kind of see the elements that we're asking you for. Okay, and so some of these things are going to be based upon what you're reading in the assignment. Some of it will be things that will be based upon you. Like, are there personal biases? Is this something that you're researching because you've got a lot of interest in? You've participated in. It's something at your school site, something along those lines. These are things we think about as evaluators. So that may not be something you need to put in research. It would be just you thinking about it from yourself. Any sampling techniques utilized, you're going to have to think, how would I use sampling techniques? You might be able to look at articles that have talked about doing evaluations of this, or look at what you've done to be able to say, okay, well, that you can figure that out. Again, you may not be doing sampling in this. That's just maybe however you do it. Who are the stakeholders and key stakeholders? I just want you to really be thinking about each one of these elements and give me information on each of those. It can be in bullet form. It's totally fine, but don't cheap out on it. If you understand what I'm saying, make this an investment in thinking about what you would do if you were to write an evaluation, and if you were to kind of put this proposal together. Make it useful for you as you go forward in your education. You've paid for this class. You can be quick and do that and not get what you need out of this. Or you can take the time to really think about this and think, how would I use this to really kind of center myself if I were to actually have to do this? If I needed to go out and put together evaluation, or if I needed to be able to go and do something where I'm asked by my boss, or maybe I actually want to write a grant and I have to put an evaluation as part of the grant. How might I do that? How might I scope that? That's what this is. So take the time and be thoughtful about what you're doing with that. So there's the actual final project that's due at the end of the semester. The other part is the final project presentation. Now, if we were in a live class together, I'd make everybody do a presentation, and by the end, everybody would be killing me because it's like, oh my gosh, let's have to hear one more presentation. Instead, what we do is I want you to present your actual final project. What you would be if you were to do this evaluation. I want you to present it. It should be 10 minutes at the most. If you're going over 10 minutes, you're going way too long. Okay. Once you record it, just present it to Zoom, send me a recording. The question I get asked all the time is, do I need to do a PowerPoint? No, not necessarily, but what is a PowerPoint for? The PowerPoint's not for me. The PowerPoint's for you to be organized. So it probably will be easier for you if you've got an organization tool that as a PowerPoint. So you put the PowerPoint together of the different things that you want. What should be included in the presentation? Well, when you take a look at your final project, you're going to be looking to see what's the topic, what's the purpose, You know, you can talk about certain elements that you've got in there. You know, what is the longevity of the program? What's the scale that you're looking at? All those elements that you actually have in there. So that's exactly what you're looking for with that presentation. 10 minutes at the most. I want you to be able to concisely put together content from something that may be long and in depth in a way that summarizes it in 10 minutes. What I will say to you is this. I've been in education now I'm in my 25th year in my profession. And I can say that I have given probably 100 times more presentations than I've ever given written projects or written documents to people. Do you guys understand that? You need to practice presenting. Because yes, I know you think you're a teacher and you've done it, and you are. You're probably fantastic at it, but that's where we need to get some of that expertise. So at every one of my classes, I give some level of a presentation because I want you to think, how do I take something complex and put it into something that can be summarized in 5 to 10 minutes, because nobody wants to listen to you longer than that when you're going to be going before a board or you're going before a group of people that you're trying to talk about your evaluation or your proposal to. That's what we want you to do. Something complex into something somebody understands. I'm not saying making it simple. I'm saying it making it understandable and palatable, and you practice with that as you're actually doing it. You will go a very long way in your life by being well spoken and by being able to actually present with confidence and that ability to do that. And if we were in a classroom setting, we would do something where we'd give some feedback on presentation skills, because it does matter. It really does. So that's why I'm having you do this. Not just having you do it to fill time, not just to give points. I want you to take something complex, put it into something that you can actually present and be thoughtful about it. I encourage you to have a PowerPoint. You don't need to turn in the PowerPoint. What you're turning into me is the link to your recording. That's what I want. So I don't care about the PowerPoint. Don't please. I mean, you can see, I've been teaching you guys now for however many weeks. You can see how fancy my PowerPoints are. They're not. I don't want swishing bells and flying in things and flashy text and all that crap. That's not what I want. It's just a way for you to be organized. A PowerPoint truly is a way to communicate to an audience, either through visual representation of pictures. Sometimes it will re-emphasize your point. And if you ever want to know what a really good PowerPoint or a presentation PowerPoint should look like when you're giving a talk, go watch the beginning of the movie Da Vinci Code, when Tom Hanks is up there standing before his audience and he has pictures that are going behind, emphasizing the points that he's talking about. That's what a great PowerPoint should look like if you ever use one, just so you know, not with a bunch of words. Anyway, don't judge that by what I have, because mine are crappy because they have a lot of words. But for you, it's not about the PowerPoint. It's about you having a place to remember what you're doing. So if you want to put it together, just have words in there so you can make sure you know what you're doing. That's totally fine. Ask me questions. What questions do you have? How about I give you one answer that I know you're going to ask me, and you may not ask me now. How many pages does it have to be? Right? There's no page number. I'm not going to tell you. If it's one page, it's not long enough because the questions are one page. So that's what I'm going to say to you. If it's 20 pages, you've spent way too much time on it. So do something where it's given enough meat so that you feel like you've really addressed those questions. You know, and don't just write for writing's sake. Some people do that, but it's just an opportunity for you to really think through what it's like to scope out some type of evaluation, and it's to begin that process. If we had one more semester together, we would go through and actually do the evaluation. So ask me any more questions. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, then let's get into some content here really fast. I can't remember. I think you guys can see the screen I'm on, right? Like you can see Chrome right now, right? Okay. I'm gonna have to bring this over to the side here for a second. Let's see what happens when I go in here. No, that's not what I want. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, let's talk for a couple minutes about a logic model. Who has ever heard of a logic model before? Unmute and say yes, if you have. Anyone ever heard of a logic model? Okay, Okay, so if we were in a classroom together right now, I would be saying, do the fist of 5. If you've ever had it, raise your feet, whatever your level of understanding. So I'm hearing that everybody here is a 0. You've never heard of a logic model. Well, great. This is a good opportunity for me to train you in something that is a very useful tool in putting together some variables and ideas of how we actually do something along the lines of a program evaluation, number one, and then how you'll be able to read one if you ever see it. Now, I want you to understand and know that what I'm teaching you tonight about logic models, this is not just a random, Dr. Greenlaw thinks this is really interesting and it's just something he likes to teach people. I am right now part of the EIR, which is Educational Innovation and Research with the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education. I am facilitating a grant review with professionals from across the country. I have a team of 3 or 4, I guess 4 PhDs. They are reading grants, multi-million-dollar grants that have been submitted to the Department of Education. And they're reading those grants, and in the process, one of the items that they're reading, you know what? I'm going to show you. I want to show you for a second. Let me see if I can get back in here. I'm going to show you. How do I get out of this? There we go. I'm going to take you in for just 2 seconds. This is relevant. I want to show you really fast. So in here, take you to this. And here's the grants. Let's take a look at one of the TRFs. Do I have the? Okay, here's the TRF. Okay, this is a document that they complete when they're doing this grant review. Okay, so I don't know if you can see it or not, but this is to be able to gain points. This is a grant review. You can see it's the mid-phase for 2025. It's a technical review form that they're required to fill out. I review this form, and as you go along through this TRF, one of the questions, literally, let me see. Okay, right here. This is in the quality of the project design. They get 15 points that they get out of this section for the quality of the logic model or conceptual framework. What I want you to understand is I'm not teaching you something that's just like whatever it is. This is the norm. This is the expectation in the world of evaluation in anything. If you decide that you want to write a grant for something to get money, one of the tools that they will require you to do to develop and put together is what I'm going to teach you tonight. I'm going to show you a logic model. This logic model, the thing we're doing, is 15 points. Now, if you come up here and take a look at it, that's 100. There's 100 points in this entire grant, 115 because of some of the other stuff. But you got 115 points possible. That's a pretty good chunk of the points they have just for that logic model that you're going to have in there. So I'm showing you something that really does matter in the educational world and what we're doing. And this is happening right now all over the country. Different people use logic models all the time. It's a tool for you to be able to scale and scope and better understand what you're doing. And we'll talk about that tonight. So that's really kind of this idea of what we're doing, that it really does, it's meaningful. It's kind of what we're doing. So this is what a logic model is, just so you kind of get a better understand. It really shows you a program and what you plan to do and what you plan to accomplish. It's a planning document. It's an opportunity for you to put various components in, visualize it in a way that you can really show connections, and it really will get you an idea to say, how can I get this, and where are my outcomes? Where are all these pieces that we go together, okay? So there's a lot of slides in this 44, but we'll go quick through a lot of them. So just so you know. So this is the most simple form of a logic model. Most simple. 3 elements right here, okay? You got your inputs, you got your outputs, and you got your outcomes, okay? So very, very simple. Things that you're going to put into the program, anything you plan to put in. We'll talk about that as we go along. Outputs, what are the activities that the program's going to undertake? So if I'm going to put money, people, humans, time, whatever it is, that's my inputs. What am I going to do? Those are the outputs. As a result of what I do, what are the outcomes? Okay, so this is a logic model, the very simplest form. And so there's connections. You got some of these pieces that go in each one, okay? Be a small program, could be a large one, could be a process. You'll see some as we go along. It really can be a map. It truly can be a map for you to be able to go through and see how you're going to step through the work you're planning to do. It helps you conceptualize it, helps you put into pieces in an order who it's going to impact and who it's going to affect, okay? Sometimes people call it a conceptual framework. They call it a theory of change program, something along those lines. Logic model is the most common term that people use, and it's kind of fun to make. We'll show you some. Okay, what it's not a theory, it's not reality. It's not really an evaluation model or method. It really is a framework, okay? So it's going to really get at this idea of how you have connections between what you're investing, what type of activities you're going to do, and then what you expect to see. So it provides you a way to be able to get things a little more explicit, okay? So we're going to look at outcomes. We've talked about outcomes before, but we're going to really get some ideas of long range, some proximal, some distal, things along those lines that you actually have. And it really helps you get a better idea of how each of these things piece together. Let's go through a couple of examples really quickly, very easily. So I have a headache. Okay, so you can see my little headache that I got going on here. I got a headache. As a result of that headache, I will go get pills. That's my input. I get Advil, whatever it is. The activity that I do is I take the pills. I want you to stop for a minute. I know that sounds goofy, but see, there's a difference. The pills are the inputs. It's what I'm putting into whatever I'm going to do. The action or activity is the taking of the pills. What I expect, my outcome, is I'll feel better. Very simple. Okay, very simple. No big deal. Here's another one. I'm hungry. I get food. I eat the food. I feel better. Okay, so you're getting this flow. I want you to see that, and I can't believe that I just did animation in my slides. That makes me nauseous a little bit, but that's okay. It's like, seriously, I feel, anyway, whatever. As soon as I start have exploding fireworks, you guys can just start all logging off and saying, I'm done with this guy. I don't know what he's got going on. But this is an example. This is really, really small. Here's a little bit bigger. Here's a little bit bigger. So we're going to go on a vacation together, and I want to go on a vacation. And so in order to do a vacation, there's a couple of things that we do. So we have, what are the inputs for my vacation? My inputs are family members, budget, the money, a car that I'm going to actually have. I have to have camping equipment if we're going to go on this vacation. Those are the things I'm investing in to this vacation. What will we do? We will drive to the state park. We will set up the camp. We will cook, play, talk, laugh, hike, whatever you're going to do. And then what do we expect as a result of that? Family members learn about each other. We have family bonds, whatever it is. Okay. I want you to see each of those chunks. Those are really simple things to be able to put together. Okay. Before I go on to, we'll go on to some more technical stuff because we'll start digging a little deeper. Thoughts, questions, comments about this? Any questions that we have? Okay, so there's a couple of assumptions that we have when we start doing this. So it's often, some of these things are, if you really kind of don't dig into this and get a better understanding of what some of these things, just it could really, these underlying assumptions, they really can make problems for you as you go further along. So if you make an assumption, if you have this idea that all family members are going to get along, but then I put them in a car together for 9 hours and they're pulling each other's hair out. How many of you have ridden with your brother or sister for hours on end? And by the time you get to the end, it's like, oh my gosh, your dad wants to pitch you out the door. So that may be an underlying assumption that everyone's going to do well together. If they don't, that could cause you not to reach some of those outcomes, just so you kind of get it there. So some of the other assumptions along those lines, the beliefs that they have, the participants, how the program is going to work, all these pieces that you do, you're going to have to think about each one of these elements. So let's look at a smaller, another example that's kind of small, but that is a nice logical change if we were trying to be thinking about what it would look like with financial issues. If we're trying to do some type of youth financial literacy program, what are some of the assumptions that I make based upon the program I would introduce? So the first one is that partners invest resources. So they put in some money. There's a high school financial planning program. 7-unit curriculum is developed and delivered to high school students. So we're making assumptions. Based upon that, we would assume teens will gain knowledge and skills in money management. Based upon that, teens will make better decisions about the use of money. Based upon that, teens will establish sound financial habits. You see that I make an assumption, first of all, that if I invest that money and develop this curriculum that goes along, that it's going to lead to teens gaining knowledge. Now, it's really interesting, this idea of of doing things and expecting three kind of outcomes here. So you've got knowledge. They call it knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors. Okay, just keep those ideas, and that's very typical in any type of thing we do. There was years ago I did research on this idea around sex ed programs and what we expect. And it's very interesting to watch what people do as a result of participating in some pretty intensive sex ed programs. So this was a long time ago. This was back in the 90s. And they had done some research back in the 80s, late 80s, when the AIDS epidemic was pretty widespread through there. And so some of these college professors at UCLA were doing sex ed classes, and they would and it were really in depth, smart kids in this UCLA classroom, and they were talking about sexual education and sexual health, and making sure. And they went pretty deep and pretty hardcore about this. And what they found is they had a lot of change in knowledge. So the students knew a lot about sexual health, what they should be doing, who sleeping with, and number of partners, and all the rest of this stuff, and how AIDS is spread, and this and that and the other. It changed some of their attitudes, but what did it not change? Most of their behaviors. Most of the kids were still making poor choices in their sexual health, even though they'd sat through enough. So when you take some of these assumptions, what I want you to get at is, just because you think you're going to train somebody, they know something about money management, they may have attitudes that say, gosh, I need to make better decisions, but do they actually then do it? We don't know. So those are that we can make assumptions, but we don't know if it's actually going to lead to it. So what I'm getting at is, when you start to put together, that's research, first of all. Second of all, just because your logic model says that that's what's going to happen next doesn't mean that's what's going to happen next. A logic model is not reality. A logic model is a theory of what we believe will come, what's going to happen as a result of what we're doing. Another quick example. Agency invests time and resources. A variety of educational activities are provided to business owners. As owners gain knowledge and change their practice, they improve their business performance. We make assumptions, but it may or may not happen that way. Okay. All right. So let's get a little bit more serious here with what this next this is getting a little more logic model-y into what we're doing here. Okay, so this gets a little bigger, a little better idea of what we're going to do. We're going to look at several models like this. This is a pretty typical view of what a logic model start looking like. A lot of times you use colors to separate kind of the stuff you're doing. And then there's also these ideas of arrows, which we'll talk about here. But here's a parent education one. You've got your staff, money, partners, and research that lead to the various outputs of what we're going to do. We're going to assess parent programs. That will lead to a design and deliver evidence-based programs in 8 sessions. You'll facilitate support groups to whom? Parents of 3 to 10-year-olds. And as a result, here are the short-term goals. Here's a little bit longer term, and here's the longest-term goals. Okay. So each one of these elements will lead. We make assumptions that those. Now I want you to stop for a second and see each one of these arrows are opportunities for research. Do you see that? You see that I can be able to say that just because a parent increases their knowledge, I can give you a test. See, did you actually gain knowledge? But did it lead to a better understanding of their parenting style? So just because you gain knowledge of parenting styles, does it give you did it lead to self-reflection on your part about your own parenting style? I don't know. That's research. Now, I'm not saying we're doing research in here, but I'm saying in evaluation, we're going to be looking. We make expectations that each one of these things happen to get out to the longer range. We don't know if that's going to be the case. Here's another one. This is a training workshop. Very typical. Here's what our situation. Funder requests grantees to include a logic model in their funding request. Grantees have limited understanding of logic models, unable to fulfill the funding requirement. So we go through and provide a training on logic models. Here's the input: trainer, funds, equipment, research base, and training curriculum. Here are the outputs. We're going to do a 3-hour training. We're going to do some interactive activities where you're going to develop some logic models together. You'll do group work, you'll practice and get a Q&A. Who's going to participate? The grantees. Here's what I expect will happen. Participants will increase their knowledge, they'll increase their ability to create, they'll increase their confidence, create meaningful logic models, use the logic models, and because that, they'll get funded, they'll improve their planning, and they'll improve the evaluation overall. Okay, so that's what a logic model is kind of doing along those lines. Okay, so I'm giving you a few other, here's a couple other examples really quickly that you can see. Here's another one with youth community service. Here's one that's kind of interesting. I like this one just because it's a little bit different. They've used colors differently in this one as you've gone through. So here's my inputs that I have down here. Here's my outputs, and here's my outcomes. So here, what I want you to see is they've changed these colors by the group that they've actually put together. Okay, so this particular part of the program they're doing, which is organizing and implementing a smoke-free campaign, where you're still using the coalition, time, money, partners, and research. Whoops. That's still in there, but here is what they're going to be doing in that particular element or that level of the work. Here's the other level of the work they're going to be doing, the yellow one. Here's the other yellow level of the work, which is the orange one. So here they're going to organize and implement a smoke-free campaign. They're going to organize and implement a strategy for treating tobacco addiction, organize and implement a strategy to prevent youth tobacco use. So each one of these is different, and they'll have different things they're doing. And sometimes they may even have different audiences that they're doing them with. But we expect that those outcomes, short-term, mid-term, and that will ultimately result in long-term outcomes of reduction in tobacco use and exposure. Okay, so this is a way for us to kind of put things, each piece together in a causal chain or causal link. Okay, let's dig just a little bit further. I'm gonna pause. Any questions so far? Happy to answer if you have them.
So these are just like perfect world scenarios.
It's what you expect to have happen. Yeah. So you could say it's perfect world, but you could also say this is what we expect. See, because usually what you're doing is you're giving a logic model before you get the funding or before you start the project. It's a way for you to scope what you're going to be looking at. Now, it may not happen that way, but it is something that you would expect to have happen. So yeah, perfect world would be that everything happened the way that it did, but not always does it happen that way. So each one of these elements is based upon an if-then relationship. We've heard this before, right? We've heard the concept of if-then. If I do this, then this will happen. There should be logical connections between these pieces. If I do this, then this will happen. If I do this, then this will happen. If I do this, then, and it goes down that chain. And that's the expectation. What it helps you with is, I'm going to take you back over to here, is if I were to say, I'm going to throw these things and I want to see this outcome, well, it's the idea. Where do I have it in here? I have it somewhere along in here further on. I'll before we get there, I'll show you this. This is one I want to show you. It's like this, right? That comic is kind of silly and funny, but it really does. It's true. It's kind of like a miracle happens. Well, what is that miracle? Well, with the logic model, you're defining that miracle. You're basically saying, how do I get from point A to point C by defining point B? That's what a logic model does for you. It makes you think through, what do I plan to do? Who do I plan to use in there? What are the short-term outcomes that I expect? What are the midterm outcomes that I expect as a result of those? And as a result of that, where do we get to the end? Because usually what you've got is you've got a situation, kids aren't reading well, and you have what you want to ultimately get. Kids start reading well. Okay, great, that's awesome. But what am I going to put into this? What am I going to do? And how do I expect to get to that final result of kids are reading well again? That's what a logic model does for you. It makes you think through each one of those steps to be able to get to there. So let's take a look. Let's take you back over here. So this is the idea of where you're going to go, right? The inputs are what we invest. The activities are what we do, and this is in the outputs. The participation is who we reach, who is our audience, who's working in this program with you. And then we have those results. Now, I put 3 in there, short, medium, long term. It doesn't have to be that. It can be midterm or medium and long term. It could be short and medium. It could be short and long. There's nothing that says it has to be all 3 of those. It could be just long term or just one group, one goal. Not usually the best, but you could do that. Okay. So your outputs or your outcomes really are the results you expect to see. They should be meaningfully logical steps. Here's another one right here. Okay. If I invest time and money, we provide tutoring 3 hours a week for 1 school year to 50 children. Students struggling academically can be tutored. They will learn and improve their skills. They will get better grades. they will move to the next grade level on time. Do you see the logical flow in what you're doing? It should be something that you can consider. Now, each one of those elements, we're making some assumptions there, but we could base those on research moves too. We could base those on the research we're reading. Basically, if we were to say, is 3 hours enough? I go back and do research and find research that supports that. I find an article that says, yeah, 3 hours is sufficient for us to be able to address some of those needs, so we can do that. You may dig into that. So each one of those may not be something that you know right off the top of your head. It's not going to be just kind of like a throw it out there and see what happens. But the other thing is it may be 3 hours a week because that's all you can afford. I don't have the funding in my budget to provide 10 hours of tutoring, or I don't have kids who are going to show up for 10 hours of tutoring. I mean, come on. I want to go home and play. I'm going to go run around to the park. I'm going to go play video games. I'm not going to go sit at school for 10 hours a week to tutor math. Forget that. I can only reasonably expect that I'm going to get 3 hours out of a kid during the week. That's going to have meaningful kind of work along those lines. Okay. This if-then relationship, this is where they connect along those lines. And then we talked about the arrows. Okay, so inputs, outcomes. We've done those already. We've talked a little bit about what this is. Let's take a look at it. This is a logic model that you guys can see here. It's pretty developed, okay? So I've got a situation. This is a little small. Sorry about that. You've got, can't see where I am. Okay, so you got your situation, and here's our priorities that we have. The inputs that I'm going to put in. Now, these are pretty typical. What do we invest? You're going to invest staff first. Don't forget, the people are big investments. Your time. You may have volunteers that are going to go. Staff are going to people you pay. Volunteers are those who are going to come in for free. Time that we're going to give. We're going to invest some money that we're going to put in. We're going to put a research-based things that we know and understand about the research. We may put materials into this work. We're going to put equipment. We're going to throw down some technology. We're going to have some partners as well. So here's some of the assumptions that are going to be back and forth, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to do workshops and meetings, services, all of these things that you're going to go all the way down here. And they could be discrete or distinct things. Who are we going to actually have participating in this? And you can have them directly connected to each one. Participants, clients, agencies, decision makers, customers, and some satisfaction that you're going to have. These assumptions. Then we assume that they're going to lead to each one of these other elements. So we'll get to this in a minute, but at the end, an evaluation can be happening at each one of these elements or in individual one that you go along, just so you're aware. Okay. So let's get to that. So there's a lot of words. Define your situation at the beginning. We've already talked a lot about that, what we're looking at. What is that first step? What's problematic? Why does it exist? What is important about it? What do I expect to see different at the very end as a result of that? If you don't start the clear understanding of what you're trying to get at, then this logic model is going to be flawed as you go through and you won't get to the results that you're looking for. Spend some time to really define what is that situation. Make sure that you've got a good grasp on it, that you have a good understanding of where you're coming in. We can do tools. Today we're not going to do them, but if you use some improvement science tools that you can actually go through and do some root cause analysis and some of these other areas that will get you to something that will help you understand where you're going. Okay. What are some of the inputs that you're going to have? So in this particular case, we've gone through some of these ideas of the different pieces that fall into there. Anything that you're going to invest, into your work. So if you think about the different programs that you may be evaluating, that you're going to put together, it may be something that has to do with teacher time. It may be students. It may be some of the professional learning time. You know, with unions, as we're negotiating the times that we actually can meet with teachers, some of those unions will limit the amount of time that you can actually do and use with them. And so therefore, that professional learning time you're investing is an investment, and it's something that's limited in what you can actually give. And then we have our outputs like we've talked about, okay? So any of these things can be any or all of these. If you're going to do trainings or teachings, you're going to have services you're going to deliver. You may be going in and actually doing something with people to be able to do it. You may network. You're going to build partnerships, as they say there. You may assess different things. So you may, if you want to be able to go in and take a look at the different folks that are actually in your whole coalitions that you're going to build. And then you look to see who are those people. Who are the people that are going to be participating? And you can link each one if you wanted to, or you can just keep it like this. It gives you an idea of where you're going. Okay. This conceptualizes what you're doing with this work. Back here is what am I going to put into the work? This is what I plan to do with the work. And then ultimately, what do I plan to actually see as a result? What are some of those outcomes that I would expect to see? So I could have some short-term ones. Usually change in knowledge or understanding is a pretty typical short-term outcome that we see from some of those. May change their opinions, skills, motivation, whatever it may be, okay? Keep this in mind, that there is a chain that links your outcomes together. These short-term ones should lead clearly to your medium-term outcomes, which should lead clearly to your long-term ones. If you can't logically go backwards with these, then you've missed the point. You should have a logical connection to each one of them as you go through, okay? A medium outcome and a long-term outcome. All right, so what does it look like? Well, it can be anything you want, really. I've shown you very typical ones that we've kind of had, but by and large, the ones that you'll see, they kind of look like this. Sometimes they'll look like this. Sometimes you'll have some, whatever it makes sense for you to conceptualize the work that you're doing, whatever you're going to be doing, okay? It's just really this idea of a graphical display. Here are some variations that you'll have in there that you've kind of seen, activities and participation. I tend to see it most of the times like that. I'll show you one that we've done in the past. Inputs, outputs, outcomes that you actually will see. Sometimes you can have multiple components. This is a little confusing, but you can have something along those lines. So for this one here, there you have the inputs and then the outputs that you have your youth prevention, environmental tobacco smoke here, and then cessation. Each one of these other areas that you're actually going to have could be part of that, and then you have your outcomes from those. Okay. Can be however you may see it in different ways. Some of these limitations that you actually have, we've said, represents intention, focuses on expected. Like I said, it may be the best reality that you can think of, but may not be true. You may have some causal attribution error in there where you're basically saying you think it's going to happen this way, but it doesn't, just like the UCLA study that we read about or that I talked about, where sex ed was expected to have a causal impact on the behaviors of students, very, very intelligent students, and it didn't. They did not change their behaviors nonetheless. And then it does not get at, are you doing the right thing? It simply gets at what you're doing. Okay, that's going to be something you'll have to decide as well. Okay, so a couple of quick ideas or things that are important for you to understand. It can be, you can spend all your time contemplating your navel, which is, as you're looking at and plan. It's just paperwork in the end. It's just an opportunity for you to put things together. You may be too focused on outcomes. You don't really get the idea or focus enough on the inputs and the rest. We've seen that as well. You may be perfecting the key to the wrong lock, right? Is it focusing on the right thing? We don't know. But you've got a really great program that doesn't do what you really want it to do in the end. You may be mixing levels, attending to context only at the front end. Context matters in every single thing. I've reinforced that with you over and over again. Context matters. Don't ever forget that when you're doing work, when you're doing research, when you're doing evaluation, when you're doing assessment, the context under which people are measured, context under which people are actually functioning makes a huge impact on the outcomes of what you're doing. And if you don't consider context in everything you're doing, you may not get the outcome that you expect because you didn't consider the context under which they were measured. It matters, always. So nonetheless, I think the logic model has to be correct. Map of the Pyrenees as versus the Alps. If you get the wrong map, you're going to go in the wrong direction. Becomes fixed rather than flexible. So a logic model is an idea at the beginning, but it may need to be fluctuated and changed as you go through. You may need to change the activities, who you're serving, and all the rest. Just because it's in there doesn't mean that it's going to happen. Okay. Okay. So here's this is the kind of these last few. I'm going to show you a couple of pieces, but this is important for us to be able to have a better understanding as we get into the types of evaluations that we do. And I think this is very useful. Typically, when we look at a logic model, the different parts of the logic model will be aligned to different parts of different types of evaluation. So we've spent time last time or a couple times ago talking about needs assessment. Your needs assessment may be coming right back here at the beginning when we're looking at these priorities or situation that you're in. So that may be where you are. A process evaluation, which is looking at what you're actually doing as you're going along, an implementation evaluation may be happening here. Are you actually giving the instruction correctly? Are you doing the right assessments that you're doing? Are you going in and actually delivering what you say you're going to deliver? That's a process evaluation. Could be through this whole part. Your outcome evaluations is, are they having the intended outcomes that you expected? Are they learning like you thought? Are they actually participating the way that you thought they would participate? Do they changing some of their attitudes around this? And then the final part is this impact evaluation. This is a summative evaluation. And at the end, did you get the final results you wanted? If you expected to have a total change in the amount of kids that are smoking at your school site based upon smoking cessation programs, did you get what you expected? You found the needs, you ran the programs on the days you wanted to do, you had the kids come who you thought would come, we had a change in knowledge, they know better about what they should be smoking or not, they know how the impacts the body, how it kills you later on in life, how it changes your ability to be able to run because you can't breathe very well, but are they actually stopping smoking? So each one of those are different types of evaluations that come in there, okay? So you keep that along those lines. So when we look at the evaluation questions, your evaluation questions will really be determined by what part of the logic model you're going to be measuring. Your evaluation questions may be if you're interested in needs, it may be something that happens at the beginning. If you're looking at the process of what you're actually implementing, it may be something that looks like at what types of activities are happening. If it's at the end, it may be something that looks more at outcomes or impacts in the long run. Okay. The indicators that you're going to choose or use really is what evidence do you need to answer your questions. If I were to say, what are the needs I have, then my indicator is going to be through the needs assessment. What activities should be being done? Are they being done? Have I collected enough this? Have we spent enough money for this? Those are going to fall into your process evaluation. Those indicators will be different. And then the outcomes as well. Okay. So these are the last ones. Just a couple of examples again. Here's those parents that we've talked about. Here's some evaluation questions that may come from those. Did all the parents participate? Did they attend the sessions? If I expected those parents to be there, these are the types of questions that you may actually see. To what extent did the knowledge and skills increase? To what extent did behaviors change? To what extent is the stress actually reduced as a result of the program? So those are the questions that it may actually come from some of the evaluations that you'll see. Here's another one that's pretty straightforward. Number of workshops held, those are the outputs. My outcomes, the number of percent increase in knowledge, each one of those elements. And then this gets kind of big and broad, and this is my last one. But you can see this is kind of how you have the evaluation questions that are associated with the actual logic model. And then down below, you have really good indicators. Now, if I were at the level of grants that I'm reading tomorrow morning at 5 in the morning as I'm running this session, because it's on Eastern time at 8 o'clock, and I get to be up at 5 in the morning sitting in the same seat doing that. Don't you wish you were with me? Super exciting. We would expect this level of connectivity into my work. I would expect you to have really strong inputs with really well-developed outputs, and your participants that you have in there with great short, mid, and long-term outcomes, really, really well developed. Okay. And I should have some really good questions, research questions, evaluation questions, things along those lines, and some clear indicators that are associated with those. Now, the evaluations that these folks write for these types of programs are extraordinarily lengthy. They're intense, and I can't show them to you. I'm not allowed to show them to you because they require that we sign this paper that I have to destroy everything. I wish I could show them to you, but they're intense, and what they're doing is they're looking at evaluations that will provide evidence without reservations, which means they're doing randomized control designs. And these are things where they're randomly assigning people to different groups at different levels. They're using a lot of statistics to be able to identify minimum detectable effect size and all the rest of the stuff. But all of these things are scoped through a logic model that starts here, where they begin to look at it and say, what am I putting in? What am I expected to do? And as I do that, am I doing what I expect? What does the implementation look like? And what are the indicators that I actually have associated with each one of those? And then what am I getting as a result? What are each one of those outcomes? What are the questions associated with the outcomes that I expect to get? And what are those indicators that I should be able to see? Often those indicators are going to be percentages, numbers, counts. Sometimes they'll be qualitative though as well. Especially now in the time of AI, you'll see even more qualitative outcomes because they're easier to analyze. And then you go all the way down to the impact. Most of these things that you're seeing with these bigger grants, 3 to 5 years in time, and they do expect you to be able to have some good results that come of these, and to be able to show as a result of what money that's been invested, my tax dollars, to be able to show that there's actually been a result. And a logic model is a tool that you can use to help get to an evaluation and a result that happens in there. What questions do you have? That was fast, but what questions do you have?
I don't really have a question. I just have a observation.
Sure.
I'm not quite sure how to word this, but it seems that the logic model is missing in a lot of places in education.
You are correct. We have not thought through some of the true outcomes and where we expect to kind of get to in some of those areas. Yeah, you're correct. Now, some of the research that happens requires it. So this is a logic model we put together years and years ago for a grant that we received from the Department of Education for, I can't remember, several $1,000,000, $5, $6, $7 million, something, to be able to do arts education across several places in California. Inputs, outputs, participants, the outcomes, the arrows going through, and the long-term impact that we actually expected to see. And it actually did work. There were some things that were done, but you're right. We have not thought through. This is a way for us to think through conceptually what I plan to put into this and what do I expect to see for those who actually spend this time. And we may not be seeing this in some of the things that we put together. You don't have to have a formal logic model all the time. I'm showing you formal ones that happen in grants. This is an example of something that I put together for a grant that we did with a group. But we don't have to have this. But this might be a really great way for you to be able to scope some type of project that you're putting together at your school. What if
So,
then?
yeah, just just an example of something that doesn't logically make sense is I think that the program I'm going to evaluate is the Beyond SST,
Okay.
which is supposed to help streamline intervention, behavioral, all of these things for kids who are struggling. And what we're noticing is there's multiple students in third grade that can't read. They just can't read. So we're talking a third of a class is at the kindergarten level, don't know their letters, sounds, and we're wondering, like, how did this happen? How did they get to third grade? No SST has ever been done. And what we're finding is this Beyond SST system is so complex and it's so difficult for teachers to input information that teachers just aren't doing it. So these kids are falling through the cracks. They're not getting the SST process. They're not getting the intervention they need. They're not getting the follow-up. They're not getting all of the programs that would be available to them because it's just too hard for teachers to do it.
Yes.
And now we're third grade teachers going, now what do we do?
Exactly.
For these poor kids who don't know how to read.
And so doing an evaluation of that, you can come out and be able to just evaluate. That could be something that's more along the lines to be able to put together a quick needs assessment, and then you can develop how you would train to be able to get to less about, I mean, your starting point could be more about how do we get teachers to be able to actually use the system if we believe the system will work. And so that could be your lot, we're from a point where our situations teachers don't know how to use the system, and the goal is for kids to be able to actually have access to this and improve. And so what am I going to do to train these teachers, and what are the short-term goals that will actually end up leading to them to being able to be done? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, so something along those lines. Look at that, I've raised my hand again. Anyway, I'm notifying myself. What I swear, I'm sure you guys think it's like my dad is teaching this class.
Maybe you're just giving us all a high five.
No, I am. I swear to you, I feel like my dad half the time when I do this. Like, anyway, he's 85, so he's a great guy, but he does not know how to use technology. Okay, what other questions do you have? Any other questions that you have of us, of me? All right, well, this was not a long one. I'm happy to be here to answer questions if you have it. If not, that's it for the content for tonight. We meet again next week. I will be sitting in a hotel in where am I next week? Sacramento. So we'll be able to connect there. And if you have questions, stick around and ask. If you don't, have a great night. Get your assignments in, and I will talk to you next week. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.